It's your town, USA. Not just houses and businesses, but a community of people and cultures working, living, and playing together. And in an instant, it can all be torn apart by a natural disaster, taking lives and damaging property. Every year, local and state governments spend billions of dollars rebuilding and cleaning up after natural disasters. The U.S. government provides considerable funding through the Federal Emergency Management Agency, but local governments and municipalities still have the burden of coordinating cleanup and disposal efforts.
The damage was overwhelming, and it was much more than we were able to handle. We just couldn't possibly have handled it with the crews that we had in our cities and counties.
The day after the hurricane coming out of this area right here, it was devastating. It was impassable by vehicles. Water was still high, the wind was still high. I mean, it was bad.
This is where CrowderGulf Disaster Debris Management can help. For over 35 years, CrowderGulf has been mobilizing equipment and personnel to areas hit by hurricanes, tornadoes, ice storms, and floods. With our strong financial backing, personnel, and equipment resources, we provide the most efficient management of disaster response services. These services include, but are not limited to, large-scale debris removal, separation, staging, and disposal, demolition work, construction and demolition debris removal, hazardous waste handling, tree trimming, stump grinding and removal, marine salvage operations, sand removal from roads, streets, and right-of-ways, beach sand screening and replacement, and emergency berm construction. CrowderGulf is able to respond quickly to anywhere in the U.S. by drawing from a nationwide pool of subcontractors, as well as dispatching our own fleet of response equipment. Company-owned equipment is disaster dedicated and available for immediate dispatch.
The following morning at 9 o'clock, we met right here with John Ramsey from CrowderGulf. We started talking about the subs that they would be providing, the people that they would be providing, and later that afternoon they were out looking at our temporary debris sites.
And they were beginning to pre-position stuff, get the management staff in the area before the storm hit. And then so the day after the storm, it was an overnight storm, but the next morning we were in contact with folks and we're starting to think about the next day or so how we were going to get equipment into the area.
Our fleet includes 184 dump trucks, 32 loaders, 4 tub grinders, 9 air curtain incinerators, along with a full line of staff vehicles and communications equipment. In addition, CrowderGulf maintains standing agreements with over 200 subcontractors in order to add to our list of available equipment. All subcontractors have debris disposal experience and have previously worked in disaster response situations. Subcontractors are also required to maintain proper licensing and insurance, as well as adhering to our own high standards of work ethics and practices. This includes consideration and compassion for the community at large during a time of crisis.
It wasn't this cold company coming in. They came in and they merged in with the community, and they left with the friendship and bond and a sense of belonging, I guess, really, with Hatteras Village.
On September 18, 2003, Hurricane Isabel made landfall in Dare County, North Carolina. The day before, 12 different areas from Hatteras to Williamsburg, Virginia, issued notices to proceed to CrowderGulf, mobilizing over 1,100 pieces of equipment and 1,500 personnel. Cleanup began the next day in most areas except for Hatteras Village, where some of the heaviest damage had been sustained. An inlet nearly a half a mile across had been cut through the barrier island by a surge and waves 30 feet high. With no access to the village, CrowderGulf's manpower and equipment had to be brought in by barge and ferry. In 45 days, debris removal and reduction in all 12 areas was complete. The total volume of debris removed from these areas exceeded 4 million cubic yards and was documented by over 100,000 load tickets. We realize that the administrative burden placed on local governments can be nearly as devastating as the natural disaster itself. There is extensive documentation required during the cleanup process, and our focus on accuracy is the reason why CrowderGulf has never had a disputed claim. We also have established close working relationships with numerous federal and state response agencies. This helps with communication between you and these agencies and ensures reimbursement to the fullest extent.
If we would have had to start from scratch to go look for contractors and then start through the contracting, certainly government contracting part of it after the storm, it just would not have worked.
Even before a disaster occurs, CrowderGulf is involved in planning and resource assessment. Pre-event contracts ensure that local governments have the necessary emergency response plans in place long before the need arises, reducing our response time to less than 24 hours. These contracts also initiate a firm dialogue between municipalities and CrowderGulf staff, who are on call and easily accessible throughout the cleanup process.
Anytime that we had any issue that came up and I needed to talk to John Ramsey or any other representative of CrowderGulf, I called them up, and if I needed to meet with them, they came and saw me immediately. So we were very impressed that they were very accessible and they were very responsive.
CrowderGulf continues to be the industry's leader in fair business practices and pricing, but even more important is our mission to place the disaster victim in the forefront. After a natural disaster strikes, there is considerable trauma and disruption to a community's economy and its citizens. It is CrowderGulf's policy to always be compassionate and considerate to the needs of a community as we work toward returning life to what it once was.
In looking at CrowderGulf as a company, it's a business. It's a very large business, and they can cover a lot of area at the same time. But I think their asset that needs to be looked at is the sensitivity that they give to the area in which they go into. They came in and they got to know the people first. They developed a relationship first, and then they set out to do their job, and they did it well.